Well, hello everyone, and you join us here today to do something that I have generally been advised not to do, which is to go down into the comments and have a read. It's a very, very interesting place, Tom. I'm sure you're aware. Do you generally read the comments?
I do, but then I start to get a tummy ache and I need to go and hide.
For anyone who doesn't really know, because you don't leave comments, please do like, comment and subscribe, by the way. The comments is a very interesting place, completely unabridged, anonymous and interesting. We get some really good comments in there from people who have got some great suggestions to make, and we also get some wild accusations. I never did any of those things. You can't prove it. However, this week what we wanted to do, because Rolex is such a popular and contentious topic, is to find some of your opinions about Rolex and discuss them, because far be it from us to just spout what we think, we're also very interested to see what you think. Tom, you've gathered up some comments about Rolex in the comments section. Do you care to comment on those comments?
Sure, yes. So, here's the first one.
Shoot.
Thomas comments about Rolex saying, "Stop posting on something you can't get." Stefano, to echo that sentiment, says, "Unfortunately, it's not possible to order it anywhere." So I think a lot of people are bothered about the scarcity of Rolex. That's one of the reasons people hate them, is just because you just can't find them. You just can't catch them.
That is very true. It has become almost a bit of a meme that the Rolex dealer window is a display of watches that say "not for sale" on them. The ultimate tease in watchmaking. It certainly ruins the appeal, but then also heightens it as well. So it's annoying, but it's also really good for Rolex, because let's not forget they make something around 1 million watches a year, but if you think you can't get one, then it genuinely seems that way, then it just... What do they call it? What do the kids call it? FOMO?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of resentment, because I sort of can liken it to Glastonbury tickets.
Yeah.
They're so hard to get hold of, and you can't get them, you can't go, and then when you see people on the telly enjoying the festival, you just you hate those people, and you're glad you're not there anyway.
Yeah.
You just sort of start to harbour resentment for it.
I watch Glastonbury and I see people watching sort of obscure bands that I quite like, and I look at the screen and I think, they're not even having a nice time, they don't even care. I'd be there really caring.
Yeah. It's almost a bit like sort of sour grapes. It's like, well, I didn't want it anyway, and actually now that I've ignored that, I've opened myself up to all this other amazing stuff that was behind it. That's kind of how I feel a little bit about it anyway.
Yeah, right up until the point the phone rings and it's the Rolex dealer and your waitlist allocation has appeared, and then you fly into the store throwing cash at them.
Yeah, but first he says, "Put this on and do a little dance."
Dance, piggy.
Good.
All right, next comment.
So, Chris says, "They're good, but they're not that good. And mentioning that their RRP isn't too bad is completely irrelevant, considering it's almost impossible to get one at RRP."
Similar sort of vibe there, but I think with an extra little bit of sweet and sour sauce, mainly sour sauce. It is a very good point, though. When you can't buy something, it inevitably means that thing goes up in price. It becomes a commodity, and we're seeing that with Rolex, Patek Philippe, Audemars Piguet, and even other brands as well, where the very scarcity and lack of availability makes it worth even more. We're even seeing that with the little plastic moon swatch. It's kind of an inevitability. But my take on it is that, yeah, okay, right, so those become out of reach and they just become the fodder of people who want to invest, to use that word in its full term, in something that they think is going to make them money. But then, for me, it's opened up the door for some really, really cool brands that I think if Rolex were readily available and freely trying to fight that market, they would be completely squashed, but they've actually got some free air to breathe in because they don't actually have to compete with RRP Rolex.
Well, I mean, I'd love to agree with you, but I have no idea what the RRP is because I've never actually seen one with a price tag or on a website. It's always just like, click here to maybe get invited to the AD's house.
As far as I'm concerned, the price is a big fat no.
Absolutely, yeah. Too rich for my dirty blood.
I remember when a Submariner could be purchased for £2,500, and now that's what a Tudor costs. So there are still options out there, and those options are still as good. You just don't get to have the Rolex brand name. But then again, you can spend that money on something awesome like a Dawn Bluth. Or if you're thinking about spending £35,000 on a Daytona, you could spend that money on a Lange, a really, really nice Lange. So if anything, those prices going up, the availability of the watches, for me, it opens up the imagination a bit more for what you can actually buy.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Milo says, I'm going to enjoy the laugh when the Rolex bubble bursts.
Really? I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think the Rolex, the bubble on top of the bubble is certainly softening, and we're seeing prices start to dip down a little bit. But when you look at the trajectory, if you take last year's trajectory and ignore the bubble over Christmas, it's still the same trajectory. I don't think these watches are going to suddenly become completely unpopular. It's not going to be like Tamagotchis, when everyone wanted Tamagotchis and you couldn't get a Tamagotchi and you were trading crazy stuff for them in the playground, and then they all just died a death and nobody wanted them anymore. Rolex is always going to be popular. It's too deep-rooted, deep-seeded into the whole essence of commodity for it ever to jump off of that. So softening, yes. Bubble bursting, unfortunately not. I think if the Rolex bubble were to burst, I think we'd have bigger problems to be dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, they are very popular. They're constantly in demand, aren't they? It just seems like an evergreen product, doesn't it? And I'm not talking about the palm fronds. Everyone hates that. But it just feels like there's not a chink in the armour that's worth talking about, really. It just seems like it's going to be around forever.
And added to that, there's now more talk about material supply issues. So it may well be that getting a Rolex becomes even harder. The production is limited by less than 1 million by material supply, and so there are even fewer people who are able to get a Rolex, thus further pushing up demand. I guess we'll see, but I don't think we're going to see anything dramatic anytime soon.
Sure.
Fire another comment.
Next one. Rodrigo says, it's crazy that people is paying crazy prices for a Rolex, when for that money you could have something ultra luxurious like a Blancpain 50 Fathoms, the godfathers of diver, and there is not a single issue like Rolex is. I mean, yeah, it's true, isn't it? It's like what you were saying earlier about Lange, and, you know, there were all these kind of fabulous alternatives that you could get with that offer way more bells and whistles over a Rolex for similar kind of money. So it is crazy, isn't it? You kind of need to sort of peer around Rolex every now and then and say, hey, what else can I get for this bunce?
Yeah.
Because this is silly bunce.
It is, but it's well-placed bunce. It's bunce that you will keep if not grow. That's the real appeal of Rolex, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's luxury bunce that plants a little bunce tree and sprouts many small bunces from which you can harvest.
Bunce.
But Rodrigo makes a very good point. The Blancpain 50 Fathoms Bathyscaphe is a watch that costs less than £8,000. It's around the same price as a Submariner.
Yeah.
And it's made by Blancpain, one of the oldest watchmakers in the world, a tier above Rolex, but that's readily available. You can go and buy one of those right now.
The trouble is you have to explain Blancpain to dingbats on the street that you don't have to with Rolex, so...
Yeah. Nice white bread, asshole.
Bit of a time saver there.
Yeah, you don't have to. Oh, well, they came before where are you going? Next comment.
Yeah, finally, Tommy Sands says what we're all thinking, really. F*** Rolex. Omega for life.
True dat.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. When you compare the two brands, Omega is a better brand historically. Omega does make equal, if not better, product, if not very similar. And you can go to the shop and buy one, and you don't have to put on a little dress and do a little dance for the dealer to consider you worthy. So, yeah, Omega for life. Up until the point where you can't buy Omega. I'm sure that will come eventually, but for now, Omega for life. Or Tudor.
Yeah. Or whatever takes your fancy. Just, it's all for you anyway. No one can see what you're wearing from over there.
Yeah.
So,
they all look like watches, don't they?
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't think there's any reason necessary to hate Rolex. It is annoying. I would personally like to own a Rolex again, and I don't think that will be the case for a number of different reasons. But there's so much out there. Don't let yourself get bogged down by it. Don't get caught up with the negativity of the comments. Don't get caught up with the the fear of missing out when there's so much good stuff that you are going to lose out on by not looking in the right direction. But until then, please do like, comment and subscribe. Let us know if you enjoyed this episode and if we should do more. And until next time, ta-ta.
Bye-bye.